We are WIMS AM 1420 95.1, 106.7 Ric Federighi in studio. Tom Bialik, the guy who always dresses for success, even at this hour of the day and early morning. It is so great to see you. You just ran into Elijah, who, as you see, is on his way out. He does that late night overnight groove, and then he goes to what I call his real job, the job that actually pays him money.
Well, we all need one of those, right? They come in handy once in a while.
And you're a guy that would know that because obviously we're going to chat about your book, Road to Nowhere. Now, let me ask you this. So the title of the book is called Road to Nowhere, but I travel and I arrive safely, correct?
I traveled the road to nowhere and I arrived safely.
There we go.
That's the full title of it.
Okay.
Road to Nowhere for short.
Okay, so I love that.
Yes, thank you.
I love the way you put that together. So before we even jump into that, if you look at the WIMS Facebook feed right now, excellent picture of Tom, a brand new feed, but I love the way you put this together. Let's talk about this cover. Who planned this cover? And we'll chat about your book a little bit, because what a really good, focus, groove, vibe you got going with this.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. And thanks for the opportunity to come in here and chat a little bit about this endeavor. The book itself, the title, the cover, it all stems from my career path, which has been varied. I've had, I like to say I've had a couple of different lives. A corporate America career, and then that ended about 12, 13 years ago, and I took another path. I engulfed on some opportunities, some entrepreneurial endeavors. But many times, we feel like we're just traveling. We're not really sure where we're going. We get into jobs and we're not sure why we even take the job other than it's available.
All right. So tell me a little bit. So was this a combination of years of you thinking about writing a book? Because where did this come from? Last time you were in studio with Michelle, obviously you are the Tomfoolery Fun Club, and you guys sell out everywhere you go. We'll talk about that in a second. But where did this come from, this book? Was this, kind of a process? Because you're a young dude.
I'm 63.
It's still young.
Yeah, I like to think so. I've still got some life left in me. But, age has a way of making you think a little deeper. And, I talk to my mom a lot. My mom and I have a great relationship. And one of the things that she says often to me as we're talking about mistakes that we've made throughout our lives, usually my life, she'll say, too soon we grow old, too late we grow wise.
Wow.
And I, never really fully understood that, I don't think, until I got a little bit older. And as I did, I just started to get some more self-realization, and I started to think back of some lessons that I'd learned throughout my life. And I thought, well, there's something here. I was teaching a class at Purdue Northwest about a year ago, and one of the students raised his hand just out of the blue, and he asked me, if you could go back and do it all over again, would you do it the same way?
Wow, good question.
And, it really kind of stopped me in my tracks, because my ego self would say, absolutely not. I would keep everything exactly the same. But after I paused, I looked at him and I said, you know what? If I could build a time machine and go back and correct everything that needed to be redone, that time machine would be burned up by about 1990.
Wow.
Honestly, and I have to find some spare parts just to get back to the future, like the quantum leap guy, right?
Yeah.
And all these things started flooding through my mind of things that I've done, mistakes that I've made, career blunders, if you will, that had I done things differently, had I known, then the path would have changed, I think, significantly. Mistakes that I didn't make mistakes out of incompetence. I just made them because I didn't know any better.
Right.
Right. You don't know these things going. You're just ignorant. And I thought, well, gosh, if somebody would have just handed me a don't do this list 35 years ago, who knows where my career would have gone.
You and I both know, and we've chatted offline about this being in our professions that we are, but if someone said to me, would you change anything? I'm going to go with the first gut guess or the first thing that you said. And it's like, no, I love what I've done. Very proud of what I've done. And I mean, at 57 years young, I say to myself, you know what? Been there, done that. What's next? And I love what I do. But what does tomorrow bring me? We don't know if tomorrow is promised. You know what I mean? We don't know if we're going to wake up. So I always say live life to the fullest while you can.
Exactly.
Which is every day.
Right.
No matter how you choose to do that. Let's talk about you being a Fortune 100 sales leader, because I want to start there. Obviously, you've got an unbelievable career. But talk about how that ties into the book, being a Fortune 100 sales leader, please.
Well, my career started in the pharmaceutical industry, of all things. And it really wasn't by design. I went to school to be a teacher. I was going to teach gym and coach baseball. And when I got out of school, jobs were thin. There wasn't much available, so I sort of fell into sales, and I literally fell into a pharmaceutical gig. I went to an open house, a job fair, if you will, and the hiring manager took a liking to me. I think he saw me as a younger version of himself.
Nice.
And but in 2 or 3 days later, I had a job. I didn't really even like science all that much, in school. I wasn't very good at it. Didn't really, but the job was great, and it paid really well.
I was just going to say the money in pharmaceuticals. Sorry, that's a huge salary. I'm just saying, Tom.
So before you know it, I'm into this for 20 plus years. And I took an early retirement. But the thing of it is, it really wasn't what I desired going into it, but it was available.
Sure.
And
sure.
fortunately, it paid to the point where I could support myself, support my family, and send kids to college, that kind of stuff.
Nice.
But I always felt like a fish out of water because sales wasn't really my I was in sales leadership roles for many years. But the idea of chasing a number, chasing a quota, that was like the furthest thing from my mind. I didn't care, but I loved teaching. I loved coaching. I loved training. I loved seeing people get promoted from point A to point B to point C. Those are the things that really turned me on. Unfortunately, those are the things that if you're in a sales leadership role in corporate America, they're really kind of frowned upon. I mean, they want that number. They want you to chase that. They want those hunters.
They live and die by those almighty numbers.
Exactly. So again, I just felt many times like I was just traveling this road to where's this going? And eventually I was downsized in 2011, which at the time I thought, well, this is the worst possible thing that could ever happen to me. I'm making this big salary. I've got this company car, stock options, all these things. And they're like, well, today's your last day. And I'm like, well, all right, I'm going to take an early retirement. And they said,
Good for you.
They said, well, you could call it whatever you want, but you ain't working here anymore. So now I'm on another road to nowhere. Like, what do I do? Where do I go? And that's where my career path got a little choppy. I mean, I took some jobs that, they were available to me, but they weren't good fits. I was a director of a chamber of commerce. I did that for a while. I saw the kind of the writing on the wall there that this wasn't going well. So I quit. About 2 years later, I took the exact same job in another community, and that one went even worse. It just wasn't a good fit for me, but it was available.
Sure.
The one thing that was pursued by design was the Tomfoolery Fun Club. Michelle and I, when we started that, we started it as sort of a lark, just kind of something to do, that eventually blossomed into a really cool part-time endeavor that made us a few dollars, but really fed our souls more than it did our bellies, right?
I love it. Tom Bialik here in studio. I traveled the road to nowhere and I arrived safely. Latest book, 7 key takeaways from a series of career blunders. Tom Bialik here in studio. Ric Federighi, WIMS, WHFP. Let's talk about the comedy part of it. Comedy show producer, obviously a great endeavor with Michelle.
Yes, indeed.
It started out, so it's been 10 years.
We just had our 10-year anniversary show.
Congratulations.
At Langel's Pizza in Highland, where we had our very first show, which where there's so much history between Michelle and I there. That's where we met.
By the way, sold out show and sold out shows around the whole area, but go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. We had a great time, and it was, I guess you could refer to it as sort of a bookend show because that's where we started. And I'm not saying we're finished with it entirely, but we wanted to just sort of have a little bit of closure to what we do there. Again, we're getting to that point now where we're looking to do other things. I'm not saying we're slowing down, retiring permanently, but we've got other interests. I do some training and consulting, and I'm on the road a lot with that. Michelle has her career. She's still going strong in the educational consulting field.
Good job.
Tomfoolery will never go away.
Good for you.
We'll be back here in Michigan City every year as long as the York Shrine will have us, which, again, that's just a great organization, great people, and we have so much fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tom Bialik in studio, Ric Federighi. Let's talk about you being a training facilitator because obviously it's in your blood, and I love your energy. And, I know you're the kind of guy that I am in terms of energy, loving what you do. And I never let anybody try to hold me down. There are things happening around us all the time, nonstop. It is what it is in life, but you get out of life what you put into it, right?
Absolutely,
so
you sure do.
Tying right into your training, right?
This ties right into what I really set out to do when I started out with, was to teach. I just enjoy doing that. I love seeing people progress. I love seeing people grow. And again, I'm at the point in my life now where I've got a lot of anecdotal reports to share with
Sure.
people. So I do training. I do leadership training or communication skills, conflict resolution. But it's more than just the PowerPoint presentation, for sure. I mean, interject a lot of these specific examples of things that I've encountered, and I think that kind of brings it home for people. It's not easy to sit through an all-day training class sometimes, but if you can make it fun, make it interesting. I'm not saying it's a tomfoolery show by any means, but I like to keep it lively.
I agree, right?
Absolutely, and that's kind of the book too. Lessons that I've learned, but I have specific examples of things that happened to me along the way that I try to make them a little funny, a little humorous, but bring the point home that there's a lot to absorb. It takes a little time to learn this stuff too.
All right, Tom Bialik here in studio. Hey, Tom, I traveled the road to nowhere and I arrived safely. Latest book, of course. How did this, when it came about, did you say to yourself, because I'm a reader, but I got to be honest with you, your read was very easy because it was, I'm just going to be blunt, short, sweet, right to the point, right?
Well,
it wasn't a 500-pager.
No, I call it a flight book. So
Thank you. It was a flight book.
If you're going to take a flight from here to Detroit, you can open it up, read it, and
Yes.
by the time you land, you're done. You don't need a bookmark. It's about 70 pages or so, and quite honestly, I have more material that I probably could share. I mean, I put 7 lessons in there. I've probably got another 50 that I could have put. But I thought, well, let's try 7. Let's see how this goes first, and then we'll maybe do a sequel. But I wanted to keep it brief because I have little patience to sit and read. If I have to read a book more than 100 pages, it probably never gets past chapter 2.
Something you need to do, a lot of my friends make 6 figures in this throughout the country, throughout the world. They record books on audio books like that. You have the perfect voice for it. You could be your own guy. By the way, part 2 could be back on the road again or something cool, right?
Well, actually, part 2 is already in the works.
Oh, nice.
I have an idea where, the more people I talk with about this book, the more they come to me and say, gosh, you know what, I've got an example too, or I've got examples along those lines. So what I'm going to do is pull together maybe 7 or 8 folks to contribute a chapter and hear their story. And I'll maybe write the foreword and the conclusion and maybe a chapter myself. When I originally set out to do this, it was with the idea that this is really going to appeal to young people, maybe college students, and they'll read this and they'll think, oh, thank you so much. But it's really people of my generation that are reading this, and they're calling me up saying, oh my God, I have so many things. We have so much in common. Because the same thing happened to me. It's got to make you
smile, right?
I had the bad boss, or I had the bad job, or just bad people, or I pursued the wrong things, or I doubted myself, didn't negotiate a good enough salary, all kinds of things that it does make me feel good because we think we're all alone in the world sometimes. When we're in this world of corporate America, particularly, we think, well, gosh, I'm the only person here that feels uncomfortable in this big setting.
I agree. It's funny because it's been drilled into my head, and I say this to the younger generation, and as I get to be where I'm at, I never thought that I would see a day when there's a ton of it happening right now all around me. A lot of my friends and people that I know and love are getting axed out of their gigs or they've been with the company. And you don't see this a lot. 20, 30, 35 years at a gig, and they're like, you're done. And you're like, are you kidding me? And then they're like, they have to start over, and they're all freaking out. I'm like, you know what? It's a blessing.
It really
right?
is. I mean,
do you agree?
Well, the company that I work for, the tagline was a promise for life. Mm-hmm. I won't name the company because they still give me a check once a month, so I don't want to badmouth them to the point. I don't want that to go away, right?
Right.
But a promise for life was their tagline. Well, and I started thinking about, well, maybe this promise is meant for somebody else because they've just basically shown me the door.
Good point.
And then you start to reflect sometimes. Like, for example, I reflect on a situation where I was with the company for probably 20 years or so, and I was interviewing a young candidate for a sales position, and I mentioned, I've been with the company 20 years. And he said, wow, 20 years. I bet you have so many funny stories that you could share after 20 years with the company. And I looked at him, and I thought to myself, I can't think of one. I can't think of one funny thing that's happened. Oh, yeah, maybe your boss mispronounced the name of a drug or something, kind of snicker. Sure. But you had to work there. You had to be in that setting to really. But there weren't any situations where you think, oh, let me tell you about the time where. Nothing. Did
it stop you in your tracks and make you say, wow?
It did. It did. It just kind of threw me back. And I said to him, I said, oh, yeah, I could probably share a lot. But at the time I was thinking, I can't think of anything that would be even remotely amusing to somebody from the outside. And I thought, well, is this how you want to go through your life? Just, plugging along and chasing the number? Well, fortunately, that decision was made for me. They said, okay.
Which sometimes, like we said, isn't a bad thing, right?
And at the time, I thought it was the worst thing that could happen. But in retrospect, man, they did me such a favor, because I was, living in an area where it was high cost of living, and I moved back to my home in Hammond, met a whole new network of friends. I met Michelle, who's, someone who, in fact, I wrote the dedication of the book, to her.
Of course.
Because she's someone that's basically encouraged me, and without her, I wouldn't even be sitting here today.
I love it.
Without her encouragement and her wisdom, I would have never done Tomfoolery, would have never done the book. I did a mini documentary movie a couple of years ago about my Little League team in Hammond.
Very cool.
Would have never done that without her encouragement.
All right, so these wonderful novels, Tom Bilyk, I Traveled the Road to Nowhere and I Arrived Safely, 7 key takeaways from a series of career blunders. Where can we get this book at?
Well, it's available on Amazon. The quickest way to get it would probably just go to my our website, tomfooleryfunclub.com. There's a page to order it directly from Amazon from there. There's a button. You just click it, and they'll send it to you, $9.99 for the paperback, $6.99 for the
Wow.
e-version. Right.
That's a great, dude, that's like nothing.
It's a deal, right? No
It's
kidding.
such a great deal. I'm all about that. By the way, Tom's picture's up on WIMS's Facebook, the actual cover to the book itself, and the cool Tomfoolery Fun Club mug, which, by the way, fabulous, whoever designed these.
Well,
Was
Michelle
that
and
you?
Michelle and I designed
Love it.
those. In
Love it.
fact, we made those. We get the little cricket.
Oh, that's a cool thing.
It's all homegrown, home-baked bread, man, for sure.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think this is great. So I know that right now you guys are kind of doing your thing as we roll into spring and summer, but you guys are always packed. Forthcoming on Tomfoolery Fun Club 2024.
Well, last fall we did a show to coincide with Hispanic Heritage Month, and it was a huge hit. We had an all-Latina comedic lineup, and Sounds of Santana was our musical.
Cool. They're great.
We had so much fun. So we are going to do that again in the fall. And then we'll be back here in Michigan City in February for the Just for Laughs
I love it.
annual event at the Auric Shrine. And that's probably where we're going with this from this point forward. 2, 3, maybe 4 events if someone wanted some help putting together a fundraiser. But we've done, over 200 events over the last 10 years, and it gets to be a lot.
I agree.
And it's so much fun, but there's some challenges associated with recruiting top talent, and
I think just everything, the cost of doing business
just
is
trying
crazy,
to make a dollar,
right?
It really is. I mean, we can't ask comedians to work for the same money that they worked for 10 years ago, but we can't elevate ticket prices to the point where we need to really make the profit. So again, we did it for fun anyway. I'm not saying we went into this with the idea it was going to make us. Well, maybe I thought it was going to make us rich for a hot minute there. But
And then you're like, no.
Yeah,
but I remember one of the first times we met, and Michelle's like, yeah, we're making whatever you were saying. The joke line was we got into the money, and then Michelle, I think, put out
right. We've been doing this for 10 years, over 200 shows, and made hundreds of dollars in profit.
There you go. That was the line. I love it. I'm like, there's our Michelle, and there's our Tom. So, no, but you guys do a great job, and thank you. You always have supported local radio in the form of WIMS, and quite honestly, working with a number of folks in and around the area. So book number 2 may be out sometime in the next year or so.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to keep pushing you on that.
I have right now. I've got 7 or 8 people that are
cool.
That are hot to contribute. So we'll get after it.
I love it. Well, thanks, Tom. I really appreciate you stopping by here at WIMS. On your picture, we got tomfooleryfunclub.com. People could direct connect to that. You're as well tagged on it. And keep up the awesome work, and tell Michelle we said hello, would you?
That's great. Thank you, Rick.
You got it. We are WIMS, AM 1420, 95.1, 106.7 FM. We are the talk of the South Shore. Don't you go away.